Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen wa ba'd. It's a great blessing of Allah the Almighty that He has given us the ability to sit in such a blessed gathering to understand a fundamental pillar of Islam that is very much overlooked by many of us. And this is due to a number of reasons. One of the reasons is that this obligation is only obligatory on certain people and it only comes once a year on a person, as opposed to other obligations such as Salah, for example. We have to pray it 5 times daily. So this is one reason for overlooking it. Another reason is many of us, we don't try to understand. We think that Zakat is something that is really intricate, is something difficult, whereas it's not that difficult if we understand it. And alhamdulillah, brothers have come here, which shows that we have understood the importance of sitting in such workshops, such gatherings, to understand an important fundamental pillar. Now what we have to understand is that Allah the Almighty, He orders us to pay zakat. Just like Salah, He orders us. And you know, when Allah orders us to do something, it's not something minor. If we are parents, for example, or if we're a teacher and we were to tell our students or we were to tell our children, close this door, for example, and they don't listen to us, how do we feel? We feel really bad. We feel saddened that, you know, we are people of authority over our students or over our children to a certain degree, and they are not listening to us when they have the ability to listen. So we deprive them from certain rights. We deprive them from eating or sweets, for example, chocolates, or maybe games, etc. So if we're blanking Allah, we don't listen to His commands, imagine how He's feeling. Imagine, you know, how He's feeling regarding us. Obviously, He's not going to like it that He's ordering us. And obviously, Allah, the King of all kings, the best being, if we're blanking Him, do you think we are going to, you know, face blessings in our life? Are we going to face peace and tranquility in our life? You know, these are questions that we need to ask ourselves, and inshallah we'll be able to ponder over these questions. Now, there's many punishments with regards to zakat. If we don't pay zakat and we die in the state, then we will be sinful and we will also be punished. So, for example, it comes in one narration that a person who was able to perform zakat, to give zakat, but he never gave zakat, he never discharged this obligation, then on the Day of Judgment, what will happen? His wealth will be turned into a bald serpent, and it will have 2 dots, and that will be his wealth, remember, and it will coil round a person and it will strangle him practically, and it will say that I am your wealth that you hoarded. So this is one punishment just on the Day of Judgment. Then it comes in the Quran that that person who had the ability to pay zakat was compulsory upon him, and he never paid, then his wealth, it will be heated in the hereafter in the fire of hell. And just like, you know, metal sheets, when we heat them in fire, they become really hot. So like that, it will be like metal sheets and they will become really hot. And then that will be branded on his forehead, on his flanks, etc. So on him basically. And he will be made to taste this type of punishment. And are we really ready to face such punishment? No, we're not. So just Allah ordering us, that should be sufficient for us to understand that this is something of fundamental importance. So we have to pay if it's compulsory. And if we don't know it's compulsory upon us, then we need to ask questions, or we need to sit such workshops or attend such gatherings, and inshallah we will try to or attempt to understand the rulings today. And it's not something that's difficult as well, so inshallah keep this in mind. It's something really easy, and inshallah we'll cover it. So the first question is, do you want to put this a bit this way so I can, you know, change the slides? Okay, the meaning of zakat. So what does zakat actually mean? So the literal meaning is purification. It also means growth. It also means blessing. So this is also used to denote piety and innocence in character, which in Arabic we call zaki. Now, when we give zakat, then one of the benefits is that it causes an increase in our wealth. We may not be able to see it physically, literally, we may not be able to see it, but Allah puts so much blessings in our wealth that He increases. And we are all aware that in the Quran, Allah mentions in verses that when a person gives in the path of Allah, then Allah gives back manifold. And Allah gives immensely, He gives back. We may not be able to see it, but it's the blessings that we be able to see or visualize maybe later on in life, etc. Now, if we move on, the meaning in Islam, the Sharia meaning of zakat. What does zakat mean according to Sharia terminology? Transferring ownership of a part of one's wealth as specified by the lawgiver to be given to a poor Muslim, except one who is from the Banu Hashim, cutting off totally any material benefit returning to the giver, for the sake of Allah Most High. So remember, at the start we have mentioned transferring ownership. So when you give zakat, the money has to be transferred into the ownership of an individual, of a person. So you cannot give zakat to a masjid, you cannot give it to a masjid, meaning in the renovation of a masjid, towards the expenses of the masjid, etc., towards the building of a masjid, towards the building of an Islamic institute, towards the building of a hospital, etc. It has to be given into the ownership of a person. Remember that. So if we give it to an organization, that is valid if the organization on our behalf gives it to a person, gives it to a worthy person that's a recipient of zakat in his possession or her possession, then that will be classified as given. Remember this. And we'll touch upon this more inshallah as we move ahead and we cover more slides. Then we've mentioned there has to be given to a Muslim, a poor Muslim, so we cannot give it to a non-Muslim. Remember this, yeah? And it cannot be given to someone from the Banu Hashim, someone that's related, a descendant of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from his daughter Fatima radiallahu anha, even if that person may be poor, meaning a person that is descended from Fatima radiallahu anha, he or she cannot be given zakat. And this is due to narrations, etc. And remember, when we give zakat, it can't be due to a material benefit. So for example, if someone's doing a job for us, someone's painting this room for me, I own this room for example, I own this building, and I call someone, a person, a painter, a professional painter, to paint this. Now obviously he's doing a job, he's rendering a service for me. Now say he's poor for example, and he can receive zakat. So if I give him zakat in lieu of his service, then that is not permissible. I cannot do that because he rendered a service, so you cannot give zakat in lieu of a service. It has to be without any material benefit, and it has to be totally for the sake of Allah. Now why pay zakat? So first thing, it purifies our soul from greed and wealth from impurity, because many a times, when something we have in abundance, then we become attached to it so much that sometimes we need someone to take it away from us. And zakat is a way, or is a thing, and one of the fundamental benefits is to take away the miserliness or stinginess in a person, where when a person has something in abundance, he doesn't want to get rid of it, he wants to keep it, he wants more and more. Like it comes in a narration where one person has one valley full of gold, then it's out of human nature, he would want another valley full of gold. So this is what human nature, he wants more and more. So zakat, it purifies us from these type of illnesses, the illnesses of miserliness, stinginess, etc. It promotes circulation of wealth. There are so many people that are poor and they're not being blessed or granted with the wealth that we have been blessed with, or we have been granted. So obviously, if we give zakat, then it helps the poor. And one of the objectives of zakat, the fundamental objective, is to benefit the poor. أنفع للفقراء. That which is more beneficial for the poor, it's beneficial for the poor. That's why we have to give zakat. This is one of the objectives of Sharia. Now, how many times do salat and zakat appear together in the Quran? Anyone know? They appear 28 times. They appear 28 times. So remember, how often do we pray salah? We pray salah. Now when Allah has mentioned salah with zakat, that also emphasizes how important it is, that it's something of fundamental importance. Now moving on, who must pay zakat? So those required to pay zakat must be a Muslim, an adult who's reached the age of puberty. So zakat is not compulsory upon a non-Muslim. Zakat is not compulsory upon a minor, a person that's not reached the age of puberty. Zakat is compulsory upon a sound-minded person, a person that's sane. So if we've got any insane relatives, family members, zakat is not compulsory upon them. And one has to be in complete ownership of nisab. Remember the word nisab. Nisab, what does it mean? Nisab is the threshold upon which zakat is compulsory. And zakat is compulsory upon certain things. We'll mention the things. So if you've got nisab equivalent to those things that we are going to mention, then zakat will be compulsory upon you. Remember this. Now, many of us over here seem like we're married. So, a question, when is your wedding anniversary? Does everyone know their wedding anniversary? Anyone that's married here? Do they know their wedding anniversary? Who's married first of all? Or you don't want to mention it? You want to stay quiet? So, does everyone know their wedding anniversary? Yes? Is it firmly in your minds?
Yeah.
So you will never forget? Yeah, you will never forget. Okay. Now, marriage, to a certain extent, is a worldly thing. It could be a religious thing as well. Obviously, it's a good deed, etc. But we can remember our wedding anniversary, can't we? Now, remember, zakat is only payable once a year. If obviously we fulfill the necessary criteria to make it obligatory upon us, then zakat is only compulsory once a year. So we have to fix one day, one date, yeah? So just like we remember our wedding anniversary, we need to remember our zakat anniversary as well, because it only comes once a year. So remember this, we fix it and keep it in our mind that it's only once a year.
Before forget that we go around. For example, this year I've given zakat on 15th of Ramadan. Next year, does it have to be on the 15th of Ramadan or?
Yes, I'll go more in detail. So basically, when I say once a year, I mean once every lunar year. Remember that, not solar year, according to the lunar year, according to the Islamic calendar. So if you fix the 1st of Ramadan, for example, then your year will start on the 1st of Ramadan. Then you'll have to pay zakat after a year, the next year, 1st of Ramadan. So remember that. Or it could be any days of the Islamic calendar. It could be the 1st of Muharram, it could be the 1st of Safar. But it all depends. The zakat year will start when one becomes owner of nisab. Now we'll clarify what is nisab in the coming slides. So now, just like we've got wedding anniversary, make sure you have a zakat anniversary and you keep note of it. Now, calculation essentials. Zakat is not only paid on wealth that you have saved or kept for a full Islamic year. Remember that. So some people, they have a misunderstanding that zakat is only compulsory upon savings. Remember that this is not necessarily true. Zakat is compulsory on savings if it's in cash, but it's also compulsory upon other cash as well that we may have at the same time, and other zakatable assets that we will be covering. Zakat is an individual obligation and should be calculated individually, not collectively. Many of us that are married, for example, what happens is we pay on behalf of our spouses. So for example, a husband will pay on behalf of his wife, or wife will pay on behalf of her husband. But this is not necessarily compulsory. You can pay on behalf of each other if you've got granted approval, you've informed each other and you're happy with that, then that's fine. But remember, it's not a communal obligation, it's not a group obligation, it's individual obligation. So just because your wife, for example, has got gold equivalent to the nisab amount or more, then that doesn't necessitate zakat, or that doesn't compulsate zakat on the husband. It's on the wife, so it's upon the wife. So if she doesn't pay, then she will be held liable, not the husband, and vice versa. It's important to go through the calculation process formally and not just estimate from the outset. So don't just guess that, I've probably got this much amount in my account, this much in my mattress, this much in my cupboard. So it comes to this much. So 5% of this I will calculate that. No, you need to write the figures down. You need to be on the safe side when calculating zakat. Yeah? Okay, now moving on. What is nisab? Nisab is the threshold for zakatable net assets at which zakat becomes due. So remember certain things. There's certain categories that we need to keep in mind upon which zakat is compulsory. We've got gold, we've got silver, remember this, we've got cash, we've got business items, merchandise, etc. And then we've got livestock, and in there we could also add the agricultural lands, etc. So remember these items. Zakat is only compulsory upon these items when they are equivalent to nisab. So once again, there's cash, there's gold and silver, there's business items, there's livestock and agricultural land, etc. We won't be touching up upon livestock and agricultural land as much because we don't have many people that are farmers unless they may be farmers. If they are, then inshallah you can ask questions. And also agricultural land, etc. We won't touch upon it in much detail because we don't really have much agricultural land over here in this country anyway that makes zakat compulsory upon the actual things on there. So we won't touch upon it. But if anyone's got questions, inshallah, you can ask. So the main things are cash, gold and silver, and business items. These things, many people fall under these categories and they have these things. So with regards to gold and silver, with regards to gold, in hadith, there's 20 mithqal of gold, zakat is compulsory upon that. And if we make the equation to that, or equate that into grams, that's 87.48 grams. And the nisab in value, in cash, that's currently approximately £2,500, right? So that's the gold. So if you've got gold equivalent to 87.48 grams, then you have to pay zakat on that. So 2.5% of that, right? Do you understand? And if you've got gold, then you only use the gold nisab. So if you've only got gold, mainly sisters only have gold, so they will only go according to the gold nisab. Meaning, if you've got 87.48 grams, then the value of that, you'll value that, and whatever the value of that is, you will pay 2.5% of that into zakat. The second thing is silver. In hadith it comes 200 dirhams of silver, zakat is compulsory upon. So if you've got that in grams, which is 612.36 grams in silver, then you have to pay zakat on that. And the current value is £214. Over here we mentioned £210, but it fluctuates, it goes up and down. That's why on the date that you are paying zakat, it's best to clarify with the scholars. And with regards to gold and silver, you could contact the jewelers, etc. So if you've only got silver, then the nisab is 612.36 grams of silver. So if you've got that, then you pay 2.5% of that in zakat. Now if you've got a mixture of both, right, then you'll go according to the silver nisab. And remember, with regards to cash, the nisab of cash is according to the silver nisab, which is £214 currently. So if you've got £214 or more, then you are owner of nisab, and you'll have to pay 2.5% of that. And remember, your zakat year will start once you become owner of nisab. So let's just take, for simplicity's sake, and just as an example, we'll take out gold and silver out of the equation. We'll just take cash. So now I own £250 of cash, for example. I've got that in my possession. So now my zakat year and zakat date will start. Do you understand? So today is the 21st of Ramadan, for example. So now I'm owner of £250. So now my zakat year will start today. I won't pay now. My year will start. So now my year will start. Now during the year, it doesn't matter whether my cash increases or decreases, whether I go up to £300 or whether I spend that. It doesn't matter. Now next year, on the 21st of Ramadan, I will see, am I owner of nisab? Am I owner of £214 or more? If yes, whatever I'm owner of, if it's nisab or more, I will pay 2.5% of that. So I will divide that by 40 and I will pay zakat of that. So that's the calculation. It doesn't matter what happens during the year. It depends what happens on the start of the year and at the end of the year. So once you're owner of nisab, your zakat year starts, and you will pay at the end of the year on the very same lunar date. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Okay, now moving on, the zakat year. So what happens is, in this graph we've given an example. We've started from Jumadul Awal. So over here, is a person owner of nisab, yes or no? Remember this line that you can see over here, this is the nisab, yeah? And over here we've just said, it's over £200 or £214. So on Jumadul Awal, am I owner of nisab, yes or no? No, I'm not. So will my zakat year start, yes or no? No. On Jumadul Thani, am I owner of nisab? Yes. So my zakat year will start now. Now it doesn't matter what happens during the year, it's increasing and it stayed above the nisab in this example, in this graph. So that doesn't matter. Now on next year, on Jumadul Thani, we've not written it here, but on Jumadul Thani, I am owner of nisab, so will I have to pay zakat? Yes, I will have to pay zakat on whatever I've got because it's above nisab. So that's what it is. And the current value is £214, like we've mentioned here.
So whenever it becomes nisab, when he has to pay the zakat, so next year you will calculate for that time when it becomes liable for zakat.
Repeat that again.
For example, he was the owner of in Jumadul Awal or Jumadul Thani. 240 pound. So next year, दूसरे साल वो उसी
Yeah, on the
महीने
very
में
same date, yeah.
अच्छा,
On the very same date, he will be paying the zakat, and that's when his zakat year will end and he will pay nisab. So you'll pay 2.5% of whatever you've got. Does that make sense? So 2.5% of £100 is £2.50. So over here we've said £300, so that's £7.50. So that's just to make it easy to understand. Now, whatever you've got, you just divide it by 40 basically, and that will bring you to your equation. And nowadays there's many websites. So if you go on National Zakat Foundation website, there's actually a zakat calculator. So if you don't want to calculate it on a calculator yourself, just put the numbers in and the figures in, and it'll calculate it for you. Now in this example, I was not owner of Nisab on Jumadul Awal here. I became owner of Nisab on Jumadul Thani. So my zakat year will start then. Yeah, that makes sense. Now it doesn't matter whether it increases or decreases, so it's increased all the way. However, on Jumadul Thani, it's decreased. So before my zakat year ended, basically, it decreased. So now will I have to pay zakat? Yes or no? No, I will not have to pay because I'm not owner of Nisab. And yes, so I will not have to pay. Now in this example, in this graph, I was owner of Nisab on Jumadul Awal, and my Nisab, it increased. It doesn't matter whether it increases or decreases during the year, but in Shawwal, in Dhul Qa'dah, it decreased all the way below even Nisab. But when came Jumadul Awal, it was above Nisab, so we'll have to pay zakat. Yes, I will have to pay. So zakat calculation in 3 steps. It's easy to calculate your zakat if you follow these steps. Sum up the value of all zakatable assets. Calculate the value of all deductible debts and all liabilities. We may go in a bit more detail with regards to debts and liabilities later on, but I'll just clarify a bit of detail now. With regards to debt, if a person is in debt, so he owes money, then he will deduct that. So basically, when you have to pay your zakat, when a whole year has elapsed, on that date, whatever you owe, whatever debt you owe to anyone else, you will deduct that. However, there's a difference between long-term debt and short-term debt. Long-term debt is, for example, a person, he's bought a house on mortgage. This is an example. Doesn't mean I'm saying mortgages are halal, but even if he has bought it, he'll still be in debt. Now that's a long-term debt. Yes, that is a long-term debt. So what happens in mortgages, because it's very common, so I will just explain the example. Why does a person get a mortgage? So for example, a house costs £100,000. He doesn't have £100,000. So obviously he approaches the bank and he says to the bank, will you pay on my behalf and I'll pay you back monthly in installments. And obviously they will charge interest. So they say, okay, you've got up to 25 years to pay the house that costs £100,000. But come 25 years, you'll be paying 125,000. So you'll be paying an extra 25,000. You can pay monthly, and not monthly, for example, it's, for example, £500 monthly you'll be paying the bank. However, they'll also charge interest on that. Now, £500, if we equate that to a whole year, so monthly, that will come to £6,000. So the scholars have mentioned, because if a person has, for example, got a long-term debt, so a mortgage is an example of a long-term debt, he will be in debt for the next 25 years, for example. So he will be in debt of £125,000, won't he? So if a person, he takes this into consideration, there's a very small chance, especially a middle class person or a person that's not even middle class, under middle class, he will probably not be paying zakat. Because for example, on his zakat anniversary, on the exact date, if he's got, for example, £2,000 on him, cash, but he's in debt of 125,000. Now if he deducts that from 2,000, it'll be going under minus. So he will be left with, minus, he'll be left with nothing. So he will not be paying zakat, will he? Because he's not got enough left. So because of that, he could be in such a position that he will not be paying zakat for the next 25 years. And what was one of the main objectives that we mentioned at the start of zakat with regards to the poor? What was the main objectives, anyone?
Purify.
It's for the benefit of the poor. Zakat, one of the objectives of Sharia with regards to zakat is to benefit the poor. So obviously the scholars took this into consideration and they said that many people will maybe use this as a way not to pay zakat, or it will be less beneficial for the poor. And obviously we want to circulate wealth for the benefit of the poor and those that are struck by poverty. So they have said that you will only deduct 12 months worth of debt that on long-term debts. So you will only deduct 12 months worth of debt. So in our example, it will only be £6,000 worth of debt that you will deduct. So on your zakat anniversary, on the date, you will only deduct the 12 months worth of debt that you owe for the next 12 months. So that's what it is with regards to debt. However, short-term debts, you will deduct that. So for example, I owe someone else money. I owe £200 to another brother, and I've still not paid him. So on my zakat anniversary, after a whole year, I will deduct that and I will not have to pay zakat on that. So that's with regards to debt and liabilities. Now, what you will do, you determine your net zakatable assets. So whatever on your zakat anniversary, so after you've become owner of nisab, your zakat year will start then. And the next year, on that date, whatever you have zakatable assets, so gold, silver, cash, merchandise, meaning business-related items, livestock, agricultural lands, etc. So all that you will take into consideration and you'll value all that and you pay zakat 2.5% of that. And obviously you'll deduct the liabilities like we mentioned. What are zakatable assets? So we mentioned cash and liquid assets. This is one of the main things. Fully subject to zakat. Remember, no matter where the cash is, whether it's lying around in our house, like I mentioned, in our mattresses or in our savings account or anywhere, it's all fully subject to zakat. And remember, with regards to interest, there's no zakat on interest. So when we have mortgages, like I mentioned, there they charge interest. So that we will not take into consideration the interest rate. So remember, all haram or unlawful income or interest rated income, etc., it's not zakatable. It must be given away in charity without the intention of reward. Yeah, so you give it to the poor without the intention of reward. There's no zakat on interest and unlawful income.
So
Alright.
for example, somebody gets paid like a monthly wage, but their monthly wage is just so then they can survive for the whole month. But then what if there's a zakat day falls on that day where they've had the monthly wage, so they have to include that in?
And they've been given the wage.
Yeah,
That doesn't matter. On the day,
yeah.
if you're owner of nisab, then you'll have to give zakat of that. And if it's a person that's not well off, then for example, if it's just £100-200, you're only giving £100, you're only giving £2.50, £2.50, yeah. So it's not much really. It's only when you have a large sum, that's when it becomes a large figure. And those people that have a large amount, it's nothing to them really. So it's not much as well. So there's nothing to worry about. Okay. Now, one may own cash within certain investments, include that as well. Now, with regards to gold and silver, we mentioned the gold nisab. So gold and silver, whichever form is subject to zakat, even they are worn or stored. So even if a person, obviously it's mainly related to sisters, so even if it's for personal use, it will be subject to zakat. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's for personal use, it'll still be subject to zakat. With regards to silver, it's the same as well. And if it's an item, is for example, someone's got a ring, necklace, it's not 100% gold, 100% silver, then you will see what the predominant nature is. So sometimes we've got a mixture of metals, so there's other metals and gold. So if it's 50% gold or more, if it's predominantly gold, then it will be classified as a gold item. And likewise with silver. And remember, there's different carats of gold and silver. So we'll cover that later on. We'll tell you with regards to how many carats you have. It's 12 carats. If you've got 12 carats or more, then that will be zakatable. Under that, it will not be zakatable due to the purity of the gold or silver. Now, with regards to business assets, what is classified as a business asset? A business asset, it's either cash or intended to result directly in cash generation are subject to zakat. Anything purchased with the intention to resell is to be valued at its sale price for zakat purposes. So basically, whatever you buy with the intention of selling, that is known as a business item or it's business asset. Do you understand? So if I buy a house or a land, for example, with the intention of reselling it, then that will be classified as a business item. So for example, I'll give another example. Someone's dealing with cars. So someone buys and sells cars. He's not registered the business. However, it's like a private thing and he keeps the cars parked around his house. He's got 3-4 cars. He's bought them with the intention of selling them. So those will be classified as business items and business assets. So he will have to calculate the value of that when the zakat anniversary date comes. Whatever the value of that is, the current market value at the time of paying zakat or giving zakat, he will have to take that into consideration and he'll have to give according to the market value 2.5% of everything together. Does that make sense? Yeah. So now with regards to business items, if someone's got a shop, for example, the goodwill and other intangible assets, they will not be included. You will know that there's no zakat on the goodwill. So it all comes down to intention with zakat. So someone was asking a question not so long ago that I bought a car. I already have a car. However, I bought another car. Now, my intention was mixed. The intention that I made was that I will use it personally in my house and for whatever. However, if the time comes and if a good price comes, someone wants to buy it, then I'll sell it. So now, will that be classified as a business asset and a business item? Yes or no? Yes. What do you brothers think? No. No? Why?
Because obviously he's going to sell it unless he's making the profit.
Anyone else with an opinion?
I think yes. I think
why?
Yes, that chance that he's already made that decision that potentially he is going to sell.
When he bought the car, what was his intention?
I explained it was a mixed intention. He wasn't sure. He said he's going to keep it for now, and if the chance comes or if a good offer is put forward, then I will sell it.
Positive intention? Positive intention of selling? No, because he's using it for personal use, and then if he gets an opportunity, then he might sell it or might not. But his main intention is not to sell the car for money, profit.
Okay, the answer to that is no, it's not a business item. Why? Because at the time of purchasing it, you have to have a holistic, exclusive intention of selling it. It can't be a mixed intention. It has to be a fixed intention that, no, you're going to sell it. Yeah? Does that make sense? So buying with the intention of selling, zakat due on entire asset value, if intention made at time of purchase, always use selling price, market value. So when you take into consideration the zakat and when you value the zakat, is always according to the market value of the item. Okay. When you buy with any other intentions, then there's no zakat on that item, yeah? But remember, when it's cash, gold and silver, there's no question. Why? Because it's cash, gold and silver. Zakat is on that anyway. Does that make sense? Okay, now property and fixed assets. Now the question is, many of us, we have properties. However, it's only for rent purposes. Now, the question is zakat due on the house that you live in? Yes or no? No. Why? Why? It's personal use, yes. So remember, whenever you want to know whether zakat is compulsory upon anything, you have to fit it in the categories that we mentioned. Is it cash, house, or personal use? Is not. Is it gold? No. Is it silver? No. Is it business? No. Is it livestock, agricultural? No. So then there's no zakat on it. Zakat is only compulsory on these things. Remember that. However, a person's got another house. So he's got his own personal house. He lives in it. However, he's got another house that he's put on rent. Will zakat be compulsory upon that house?
Yes. No.
So we've got a difference of opinion amongst the scholars. Well, okay, why do you say... So you're saying, you guys are saying no because? I'm saying yes, sorry, because it's business. You're saying it's business. Okay, and you're saying no, why?
Because his intention is not to sell that property. He just pays zakat on the rent of that property. That's it.
Okay, the answer is correct. There's no zakat on the actual property if he never purchased it with business intention, meaning to sell it. Normally when you have it, it's just to gain income. You know, when a person has an extra house that he's put on rent, it's just to gain the income, the rent basically, for that purpose. So now zakat is compulsory upon the rent, yeah, because it's cash, it falls under cash. However, normally when you receive rent, you receive it monthly. Normally that's the case. You remember, zakat is not paid on a monthly basis or a weekly basis. It's only paid on a yearly basis. So you don't even have to worry about the monthly rent that you have gained. It's on the zakat anniversary date, whatever you've got in cash. So even it'll include the rent that you received as well, whatever you've got, it's in your possession. So now if you received rent during the year and you spent it, then obviously you won't include that, because on your zakat anniversary, you are not owner of that, you've spent it now. It's only on your zakat anniversary, whatever cash you have, so that will include the rent. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Okay. So, but a house bought with the intention of resale is fully subject to zakat at its sale value. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, shares as well. With regards to shares, many of us, we invest in shares. If shares are purchased with the intention to resell, then the entire holding is subject to zakat at the current market value. Does that make sense? So, if a person invests in a share for business purposes to resell it, then the entire holding is subject to zakat. However, if shares are purchased as a long-term investment, then zakat is due on the zakatable assets of the company. How do we calculate this? So the dividends in one's ownership on zakat anniversary should be added to one's cash balance for zakat purposes. So basically, when you receive the dividends on your zakat anniversary date, the dividends is the profit, etc., then you will pay zakat on that, because it will be including. With regards to pensions, mashallah, everyone looks very young here. There doesn't seem like there's any pensioners. Am I correct? Inshallah, I'm correct. So we don't need to worry about pensions, and we won't go in much detail. But with regards to pensions, in short, when a person reaches the age of pension, the pension that he will receive after, because obviously normally you receive it at pension age, after that, that's when you receive your pension, don't you? So zakat will be on that cash anyway, because it's cash, if obviously you have the nisab amount and it's a whole year has elapsed, etc. Other than that, there's all different types of pension schemes. National insurance contributions, there's no zakat on it. And one of the main thing is, what happens is when a person is working for a company, then they deduct a certain amount and they say that that is going towards your pension later on. Now, if you have a say in that, if it's voluntary, or you have a say where it's going to be invested and stuff, so these different type of schemes. You've got the final salary scheme. There's no zakat due on this. So if your company deals with this, then there's no zakat. Why? Because there is no quantifiable or specific amount of wealth attributed to the individual. So it's involuntary and it's not quantifiable, etc. Now you've got the money purchase scheme. Zakat is due on that because the fund value is determinable, right? Determinable, and where the funds are being invested on behalf of the holder, all that is determinable. Now there's so many different schemes. Because of that, there will be different answers to the different schemes. So if you are involved in such a scheme due to wherever you work, then inshallah you can ask us, or if it's later on you've got questions, then you can contact the National Zakat Foundation, or they will leave a number as well and you can contact us, inshallah.
For example, if you contributing towards the pension, the scheme itself, in the eyes of Islam, itself that scheme we contributing into that scheme, pension scheme, is that right or wrong?
That will all depend. You will have to give more detail with regards to where is it being invested, because sometimes the company that you're working for, or whoever you're working for.
I actually worked, I just retired.
Okay.
And I received that pension, and I didn't know whether they. That question never dawned on me.
Okay, yeah, that means then I'm assuming then whilst you're working, you had no say in that. You had no say in where it's invested, and you know it wasn't quantifiable, etc. Then obviously at that time there was no question of zakat, etc. But now that you're receiving it, that is cash now in your hand.
And then the question was regarding that scheme itself, that the pension I'm receiving, from the company pension.
Yes.
The question was, is that right or wrong, or halal or wrong?
Oh, well, that depends on the scheme. So you'll have to contact your workplace or whoever you worked for, and ask them that, you know, when you were deducting this, etc., where were you investing it? I just want to know for religious purposes or whatever. And then, inshallah, if you can get back to us, then we would be able to answer that question. Yeah. So that all depends on where it's being invested, etc.
Most of the dealing they do is just on interest based. Majority of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like, I have one at work as well. You know, when the government launched a few years ago, whereby they say that you should have it and you can opt in for it. I think you pay a certain amount each month, and the company then put a certain amount in.
Okay.
How does that fall with the zakat?
Say that again, brother.
Recently, a few years ago,
there
was one scheme that came out with the government launched, whereby they want to opt you in automatically for a pension. And what happens with that is you pay a certain amount, and then the company also pays in a certain amount towards it. Do I need to find out how much I've got in that and then pay Zakât on that?
Well, first of all, you find out the name of the scheme. That will make it easy for us, because we've got research done on various schemes, so we'll be able to give you a better answer. So if you can get back on the exact name of the scheme, so we know the procedure, etc., then we'll be able to give you a better answer, inshallah. Yeah. Okay. Now moving on, with regards to receivables that are zakatable for all outstanding years, loans advanced with hope of repayment, receivables from the sale of commercial goods. Okay, now we're talking about money owed to you. So remember when we spoke about zakat, we spoke that zakat is compulsory upon these categories: cash, gold, silver, merchandise, business related items, livestock and agricultural produce, etc. However, when on the zakat anniversary date, you will deduct what you owe to someone else. We mentioned regarding the long-term debts and the short-term debts. I mentioned that in detail. So we understand. But now the question is money owed to you. So someone else owes you money. So now, do you include that in the zakat or not? So will that be included or not? So in short, the answer to that is, with regards to money owed to you, yeah, you are liable to pay zakat on that. However, it's only compulsory upon you to pay it once you've received it, right? Once you've received it. And remember, there's mentioned that once you've received 1/5 of it, only then will you have to start paying, etc. But we won't go in much detail with regards to that. But once you receive it, that's when you have to pay. However, what happens is, say you've not received it for 2-3 years, 3-4 years, then you will have to take into consideration those 3-4 years whilst paying. So I'll just give a short example for us to understand. So I'm paying my zakat anniversary is today, but someone else owes me £200, example. Now, that is zakatable because it's cash. However, and it's my cash even though it's with someone else. However, it's not compulsory for me to pay there and then. It's only compulsory once that person gives it to me. Say he doesn't give it to me for another 3 years, another 4 years, then I receive it after 3 years. I will have to take into consideration when receiving that, those previous 3 years of zakat that I have to pay on that. Does that make sense? So I have to pay zakat of the 3 years prior.
You multiply by the number of years and the money being owed.
Yeah, that's right. So for that reason, because you may have lent money, £200 to someone, then £300 to someone else, £500 to someone else, and rather than keeping in mind the different years, what I advise is that it's best to pay on your zakat anniversary day, even that which someone else owes to you, just pay it, because it may not be much, and when you're going to receive it, you're going to pay anyway. You're going to have to pay anyway, isn't it? So it's best just to pay and get it over and done with now, rather than taking into consideration different calculations later on. So just pay to get it over and done with. That's my advice, and it'll save the hassle, isn't it? But the obligation will not be upon you at the time. So if a person was to pass away later on, then the obligation will not be upon him because it wasn't in his possession. Does that make sense? So that's with regards to money owed to you. Now, receivables that are not zakatable for outstanding years. Now, what if you've lent someone money, all right, but there's no hope of repayment? There's no hope that he will give it you back. Is zakat compulsory upon that, yes or no? No. There's no, because there's no hope of, there's no hope of repayment.
What if you do it though? Like if there's no hope and after 5 years, if by chance you pay you back, you have to pay after 5 years then?
That's correct. If you do pay, then it's good. Basically you'll get rewarded, but the obligation won't be upon you. So just say he does, you do receive it, so then you're on the safe side, isn't it? You've covered yourself basically. Yes, correct. Okay. Now moving on, wages, fees, remuneration of services, etc. There's no zakat on this. Does that make sense? So for example, I think a brother asked before that on your zakat anniversary, so today is my zakat anniversary, however, I get paid my wage monthly. Now, I've worked this year, this month, it's coming to an end. However, I will be paid later on, meaning at the end of the month. So now, will I have to pay zakat on that? Yes or no? No. Yes. Yes.
It's not position of their money, is it?
Yeah, that's correct. So I will not have to pay zakat on that. Likewise, mahr owed to wife, and likewise with inheritance. We should have mentioned, yeah, there's inheritance. So example, someone passed away, a direct family member, someone's father passed away last month. He's left a lot of cash behind. Now the zakat anniversary is today. However, he's not received that because the person, maybe he had an elder brother and it was his responsibility to distribute it, and he's still not distributed it. Now he's not received it. However, obviously he's a direct inheritor, so he will be getting cut in that. So will he have to pay zakat on that, yes or no? No, because he's not received it, it's not in his possession. Does that make sense, everyone? Now, there's no farmers
For
here.
example, one he received it after a number of years, they have to pay them number of years.
When he receives it, no, he will not have to pay for the number of years because it's not in his
So
possession.
whose responsibility then?
Whose responsibility for?
For that money he is got, his dad left, his brother's not paying, his father's not paying.
Can you repeat that again, brother?
For example, I've got some lands. My father left. Yeah, he passed away, for example.
Okay.
So we got 4 brothers, 5 brothers, 2 brothers.
Yeah, yeah.
So as a younger brother, I haven't received anything yet.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. After 5 years, my brother decided, okay, we need to sort everything. So what's going to happen then?
Well, you weren't responsible because it was your elder brother's responsibility. Did you mention land in there as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, with regards to land, there's no zakat on land because it doesn't fall under the categories, does it? Cash, gold, silver, etc. However, just normal plain land we're talking about. So that doesn't fall under there. And obviously you were given that in inheritance, so you couldn't have intended it to be for business purposes. So there's no question of zakat. Yeah, does that make sense? Okay, moving on. So there's no farmers, so we won't go on. Now, what are deductible liabilities? Debts and liabilities that are due or outstanding for repayment on the day of one's zakat anniversary are deductible. So I mentioned this at the start regarding the long-term debts, the short-term debts, so we don't need to go in detail with regards to that.
If anybody owes anybody money, loads of money,
Yeah.
would he be given the zakat?
If someone owes someone money,
For example, if I owe somebody X amount of money,
yeah.
can I, or XYZ, receive the zakat?
Okay, we're going to cover that now. Who can receive zakat? We're going to cover that. So at the moment we're covering who has to pay zakat and what you deduct from your zakatable assets, etc. But now we'll cover, inshallah, who can receive zakat. So now we'll cover that. Who can receive zakat? So in short, that person, there'll be 3 categories. There'll be a person that has to pay zakat, right? Because he's got the nisab amount and he's deducted the liabilities, etc. And whatever he's left with, it's zakatable because it's the nisab amount and it's been with him for a whole year. Yeah? And we understand the calculation, don't we? That if it stays with you for a whole year, the nisab date is from the date that you have nisab, the zakat date is from the day you have nisab, and the ending is the exact same lunar date. Now that's a person that has to pay zakat. Now a person that has to pay zakat, he can never be worthy of receiving zakat. Does that make sense? Because he is owner of nisab. So if you have to pay zakat, you cannot be owner of, you cannot be worthy of receiving zakat. You cannot be a recipient. That's one category. Now another category is a person who neither has to pay zakat and he can neither receive it as well. Why does he not have to pay zakat? Because he's not owner of nisab for a whole year, etc. So he's not owner of nisab, so he doesn't have to pay. However, he cannot receive zakat. Why? Before we answer why, we answer the question that who can receive zakat. So remember, we're still on the second category. So basically, a person, he doesn't have nisab equivalent to anything, the things that we mentioned, the categories, the gold, silver, cash, etc. But excluding his items of necessity, he doesn't have the nisab amount. So for example, I've got a house. Is that an item of necessity? I live in there. Yes, it's my own house. Everything in my house, the basic necessities, for example, the furniture, the items in the kitchen, fridge, etc., everything, that's all items of necessity. Now, however, I've got a phone as well. That's an item of necessity in this day and age. I've got 3-4 phones, and there's no business interest in there. There's no intention of business, and they're just lying around. I've got one car. A car is an item of necessity, isn't it? Because you normally need it to go out and about in this day and age. However, I've got an extra car. Now, the extra car would not be an item of necessity, yeah, because I don't need 2 cars. I only need one. Now, excluding my items of necessity, I've got these phones that I mentioned, extra 3-4 phones. I've got an extra car. So I have got items excluding my items of necessity. Now, if a person excluding his items of necessity, he's got items, so the extra car that I've got, the extra phones, if the value of those items are equivalent to nisab, so the nisab is £214. If it's equivalent to nisab, then such a person cannot receive zakat. Does that make sense? So obviously that will be each and individual case. Only a person will know himself whether he's eligible to receive zakat or not. So such a person cannot receive zakat. So now I've got a question. I'm not owner of nisab. However, I've got a TV in my house which is worth £1,000. Now, can I receive zakat, yes or no? So is a TV an item of necessity?
No, it's not.
No. So now can I receive, because it's more than the nisab amount. Does that make sense? So obviously now a person, if he wants to receive zakat, he'll have to calculate it himself that excluding his items of necessity, has he got items that are equivalent to the value of nisab or more? If yes, then you cannot receive zakat. So this was the second category of a person that doesn't have to pay and cannot even receive. Now lastly, it leaves us with a person
What
that
if you've got somebody in Pakistan and they're still quite poor but they've got a TV?
then obviously it depends, in Pakistan, right? In Pakistan, the value of everything is different. So I would assume that the TVs, especially if it was a middle class person, it won't be the value equivalent to nisab, because the nisab, I remember when I was there a few years ago, it was a lot for the people there, right? For the people there, it is a lot. So many people, they would be poor, and obviously many of us, we think that even people here,
Got television.
who's got television?
Beggars.
Okay, yeah, even beggars have television, yeah.
They've got copy machine, yeah. If you go notes and stuff, they'll say, okay, it's not.
Okay, I've just got a note written for you on that. So the question with regards to that, on top, yeah. The question so that is what we were left with. The third category. So the third category is, anyone? The third category is meaning, a person that can receive zakat. So who can receive zakat? That person, excluding his items of necessity, he's not got items that are equivalent to the nisab amount.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So only that person can. And many of us, I was saying that many of us think that in England, no one could be eligible to receive zakat, but that is not the case. There's so many people that are poor. There's people that are in debt, in a lot of debt, and they're eligible to receive zakat. So many of us, when we pay zakat, that is coming in the coming slides, we think that we should give it abroad, back home to India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, poor countries, third world countries. But that is not the case. There are so many poor people. If we contact, for example, this National Zakat Foundation, they will give you case scenarios, and you'll be shocked. The amount of people that are eligible to receive zakat. And this with the people, Muslims as well, that are homeless, and you'll be shocked. They'll be living in friends' houses, families' houses. They can, just literally pay the bills. They can't pay the bills. They're basically hand to mouth. So that's why it's best, and obviously it's more reward worthy as well to pay locally to family members in our own neighborhood. But remember, it's only towards Muslims. So if we want to know those people that are needy and worthy in this country, inshallah, we can contact National Zakat Foundation. They will inform you more with regards to those that are needy. So remember these three categories. So those that are eligible to pay, they have to pay. They've got the nisab amount. So obviously they will never be they will never be eligible to receive it. Then we've got the second type of person that he's neither eligible to receive it, is neither compulsory upon him to pay it. Then we've got the third person that's eligible to receive it, and obviously so he doesn't have to pay it. So these three people. Now the final calculation. So do I have to pay zakat? So we mentioned those eligible to receive it. And remember, from amongst those that are eligible to receive it, he can't be a person from the Banu Hashim, so a direct descendant from the Prophet through Fatima radiallahu anha. It cannot be spent on mosques, schools, hospitals, burial expenses, like we mentioned. Remember, the fundamental aspect is, when giving zakat, is to transfer ownership. Does that make sense? So now...
For example, father and mother.
Yeah, we're covering that now.
Right, fine.
We're covering that now. So now those that are barred, I'll give you an example. So some people, they may give zakat to hospitals. So you cannot give zakat to a hospital, because this is generally speaking, because the hospital, it will use it on, for example, the hospital building or on medicine, but it will not make the poor person or the needy person owner of the actual wealth or the medicine. Does that make sense? However, if you give it to a poor person that's in hospital, for example, he's in need of the money to pay for his medication. So you just give him the money, he's become owner of the money, now he can buy the medication. Or if you buy the medication from the zakat money and give him the medication, make him owner, then that's also alright as well. So many people, they are in need of money for operations, so you just give him the money and say, okay, here, and you make him owner, and then he could do whatever he wants with it. Now, with regards to zakat as well, when giving, obviously has to be needy, and I've mentioned who's needy and worthy, so he has to be a Muslim as well, so you can't give it to non-Muslims. With regards to non-Muslims, you could give other charity, so sadaqah, etc., you could give to non-Muslims. Now, another thing is, you cannot give it to your lineal ascendants, so you cannot give it to your mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, great-grandmother, great-grandfather, all the way to the top. You cannot give it to your lineal descendants. So I've mentioned the ascendants, lineal ascendants. You cannot give it to lineal descendants. So you cannot give it to your children, son, daughter, grandson, granddaughter, great-grandson, great-granddaughter, all the way to the bottom. A husband cannot give to the wife, and wife cannot give to the husband. So these people are barred. Yeah. So lineal ascendants, lineal descendants, a husband to wife and wife to husband. Other than this, you can give it to your aunties, uncles. You can give it to your nephews, nieces, etc., cousins. Yeah. So these are the people that are barred. And obviously there's narrations, etc., explaining this, that's why.
Sorry, do you say cousins you can't do it?
You can.
You
So
can.
lineal ascendants, lineal descendants, husband to wife, wife to husband, these are barred. Yeah? Yeah, you can give it to your brother, you can give it to your sister. Yeah, even if they live with you, yes.
Even live with me.
Yes.
I just had something that people say, like, you can give your brother if you don't live with you.
No, that's not the case. You can give it to your brother, even if they live with you, yes.
For example, that will answer my question. For example, if the father and mother, they are the owner of Nisab, but the children are Bali, they not. Can you give zakat to those children? Because
Repeat the question again.
For example, I am liable for zakat, but my children are not. Can anybody give zakat to my children who are adults?
Okay, so basically you're saying you're liable, but not...
Not the children are.
Yeah, then it
They're
would...
not the owner of anything. But can anybody on vice versa?
Then what it is normally is, it depends on an individual's, the father's status, etc. So if the father is worthy of receiving it, then...
If he's not liable for receiving the zakat,
Yes.
but the children are not in the possession of anything, can the children receive the zakat?
No, then it will depend on the father normally. However, I'll get back to you on this one, because there is differences. So I'll get back to you, inshallah. If you can take my number, etc. Inshallah, I'll clarify this. Yes. Okay. Now, with regards to missed zakat, there's a miscalculation website where if someone's missed zakat and they're finding it hard to calculate, then you go on the missedzakat.com, and inshallah they will find you, because many people they have previous years worth of zakat to pay, and they only find out that they have to pay or eligible. So yes. Now with regards to local versus abroad, I told you that these scholars agree that each country is more worthy of its own zakat. So where you're living, those people that are worthy, you should be giving to them. But you can also give abroad.
Sorry, can you repeat that question, please? What did you just say?
With regards to abroad, well, the scholars agree that each country is more worthy of its own zakat. So whatever country you're living in,
Right.
obviously if there's needy people there, then they're more worthy of receiving it from you because they're local. But that doesn't mean you can't give it abroad. You can
Right,
still
right.
give it abroad. Your zakat will still be discharged. But
Distribute if it's there.
yeah,
Then somebody else.
yeah, that's correct.
Right. Okay.
Now, zakat resources, if you want to calculate, then you can just go on National Zakat Foundation website, and inshallah there's a zakat calculator on there. You can write this number down as well. At the moment, we've got a zakat hotline.
Is that number not in here?
Yeah, that should be on there. If not, you can maybe write it down. There's a zakat hotline that's operating in Ramadan from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. So you could phone anytime. There's scholars sitting on the panel waiting for calls. So inshallah, whatever question you have, it'll probably be outside Ramadan as well, but the time will be fixed and stipulated so you can contact with regards to the time. And inshallah, Jazakallah for attending. And inshallah, I pray that Allah the Almighty give us all the ability to understand the importance of zakat. I pray Allah the Almighty give us all the understanding to give zakat and give to those people that are worthy and eligible to receive. And I pray Allah the Almighty give us all the ability to act upon everything that's been said. Ameen wa akhru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Any questions?
Yes. For example,